Good evening, everyone. I call this regular council meeting Monday, May the 15th, 2023, 7 p.m. to order and to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Chehalis. Next order of business, please.
Next item up for business is the introduction of late items.
Thank you. I have a couple of items and I just wanted to make a few staff announcements. I just do for the public record. I just want the public to be aware that our community services manager, deputy corporate clerk, she had many titles. She was also the chief elections officer. So she has officially resigned from the village. And the next item that I would like to announce, and it's with sadness that I announce it, but it's expected. Our interim chief administrative officer, Kelly Ridley, has given council that notice that her last day will be June the 30th. Yes. So I would just like to thank Kelly for what she's done. She's come into a very difficult situation. She's done great things for the village in the short term that she's been here. She's been here since the end of February. And we knew it was a short period. And my understanding is that Kelly wants to retire. And she's planning a trip on the road with her husband. I just wanted to say one other comment. When I spoke with Kelly the other day, when she told me this, the first response that came out of her mouth was, I couldn't have done it with all the great staff I have working with me. Anyway, I just like to say thank you. Absolutely. I have one other item here. And I mean, I think it's, we are down 4 senior staff members right now. We will be once Kelly leaves. But we are in a, I would say we're in a not a good situation by any which way. It's important that we get good qualified staff. Unfortunately, it's taken council over 6 months to get to where we are today, that there is now an official posting out for the full-time chief administrative officer. So hopefully we can find somebody for that position. To me, that's the key position in the running of this village. That's the person that really should be responsible for the hiring of the other staff members. I hope that it happens in that order, but it just may not. I know that council, and it's unfortunately 2 council members are not here tonight, but it's unfortunate that council and the mayor here have not seen eye to eye over the last many months. I would hope that council and myself would put things behind us and we can ensure that we get some good staff members in here, help staff out with what they need, and get the village office back in good operation. So that being said, and just recognizing that the workload on the staff, and again, being those numbers short, there are 2 motions that I just would like to recall. And that one there is on Woods Park, is on page 6 of the agenda.
Mayor Wood, may I suggest that we approve the agenda before we move forward?
Well, this isn't, there is no proper place under a council procedural bylaw for the recall. So there, if there's a place that council wishes to put it, I'm all for it.
I just would perhaps prefer if we could just approve the agenda before we move ahead.
The approval of the agenda is the next actual item on here. So,
Well, Mr. Mayor, You're
Yes.
talking about Woods Park, and you must be referring to our last council meeting agenda, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, that was on page 6.
So, Mr. Mayor, we can add it onto the agenda.
Where would you like me to add that to the agenda?
We could put it under your reports from the mayor. Or actually, how about business arising from the minutes?
Business arising from the minutes. Sounds good. Okay,
So we will be adopting the minutes of the last meeting. And there is a section called business arising from the minutes.
would it not be better to do the recall before the minutes are adopted? Or after the minutes are adopted?
So are you asking for council to reconsider
Yes.
the
it's just-
motion?
Correct, just a revote. If Councillor Vidal and Councillor Jackson are okay, if I can just continue and do it here under the introductory, and it should just be a quick recall. Councillor Jackson.
Mayor, what
Vidal.
I'll, I take direction from our interim CAO. And I will, agree with her recommendation. Thank you.
So I don't think her recommendation was clear. Can you help me out on that again, please? Chief Administrative Officer?
So you would like to have a reconsideration of Woods Park,
Yes,
and you would like to do it before the minutes are adopted.
correct. There is no place in our council procedural bylaw for the mayor to put that in.
No, there really isn't anywhere. So what we could do, Mr. Mayor, is you could let us know what you want to introduce as late items. Then council can approve the agenda as amended with your late items. And then we can discuss it then if you wish to do it before the minutes.
Okay, thank you. So the introduction of late items is the recall of the Woods Park Playground. And the second one, excuse me, is on page 7. And that is that regarding that staff be authorized to set up the open house for the OCP. So the next order of business then, please.
Sorry, I'm just taking notes here. All right, the next item then is approval of the agenda as amended by adding reconsideration of Wood Park's playground and the OCP open house.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Jackson. Seconded by Councillor, we're so small here tonight, sorry. Seconded by Councillor Vidal. Discussion. Call the question, all in favor? Passes unanimously. So the next item, please.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, would be your discussion items before the adoption of the
So we're
minutes.
going to do it before the council adoption. Yeah. So again, is in light of the limited staff that we have, I believe that again, that the village here is getting at a critical point with staff. And I think that there are some items in here that would be better dealt with at another time at a later date when we get the actual staff on board. So that's the purpose of the recall. So I'll read out the motion. And it is that the proposed Woods Park Playground be referred back to staff to look into available funding and research additional options for a natural looking playground, and a report be brought back to council's consideration at the June 5th, 2023 regular council meeting. So that's been moved by Councillor Buckley, seconded by Councillor Vidal. So there's no discussion on it. So it's just calling the question. So all in favor? Go ahead, Counselor.
What are you trying to do?
Oh, I would like to see that the Woods Park, it would be my preference to see that not be referred back to staff. Because this is also financial components and we will also have no chief financial officer at the time to answer any of the questions. So the idea is that this would come back at a future date,
At a future date.
at a future date.
So we're
This-
just gonna kick it down the can till some other time.
Yes, absolutely.
I would rather put children first. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's the way I feel.
Okay, so I call the question, sorry, Counselor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I do think that there are certain considerations. I did meet with a couple of the residents who raised concerns about where the actual small park area was being proposed and measured. I disagreed with that area and think within Woods Park, there's a better area more in the middle of the park that would not need to eliminate any trees, which was council's concern. And with smaller structures, I'm not opposed to delaying this, perhaps until, may I suggest, August or September, once we hopefully have some staff. I don't want to see us rush into this with something that we may possibly regret in the future. So I will support delaying it. I would like to possibly have a date on that. So if I could make a friendly amendment to your motion for staff to report back no later than September, but earlier if we do have staff availability before then.
Okay, so it's a recall. Now, I don't know if our chief administrative officer, can we have an amendment on the recall? Because it's just supposed to be the recall of vote. So that would require, I think, a separate motion, would it not, yes, looks like that we need a separate motion for it. So right now, the only thing I can do under the power of the mayor is to actually just recall this. So there's no date set. Okay, so ready to call the question? All in favor? Counselor, and all opposed. So the motion fails because the motion actually fails. So it does not, it will not report back to council. And that's with Counselor Vidal.
Sorry, Mayor Wood, I'm just a little bit confused. What we voted on was to recall the motion from previous council meeting. That's correct?
That is correct.
And that motion failed, or did it pass?
So when the motion fails, that means that the previous direction, the previous resolution that was given to come back to the next council meeting, that one fails.
Fair enough, thank you.
So this motion, the motion here, it was carried the last time. And so this time here now, it is, the motion fails with Councillor Vidal and Mayor Wood opposed. Okay, thank you. The next one here, and next recall is to on page 7 of the minutes of the agenda. And it's all for the same reason, and it's all to do with the staff involvement. And this has to do with the official community plan. And it's not to stop it in any which way. There was a motion here that staff be authorized to set up an open house. This open house is, I believe, in the next 2 weeks. And again, with the limited staff that we have, I think that we should really seriously consider postponing that to a further date again, once we get the staff on here. Just one second. To our Chief Administrative Officer, please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor Wood.
Yes.
Staff have already advertised the open house, so it makes it harder to be brought back for reconsideration when staff's already started the process.
That's a good question. If it didn't pass, if the minutes haven't been adopted, the resolution isn't enacted. So actually, I'm not sure why it was actually advertised. So I did see it advertised. So it has not been adopted at this time. So we have an opportunity to recall that motion, which would basically stop the open house for the OCP for the end of this month until such time as we have the appropriate staff to be able to work with the planner and to do our OCP properly. Any questions on that, councillors? No. So we're ready to, so this, again, I'll read the motion. So that staff be authorized to set up an open house. All in favor?
Your worship,
Yes.
in all due respect,
Yeah.
I really wish you would have had this on the agenda. I mean, it's an important thing that you're bringing up. And I understand that.
Yeah.
But we haven't had the opportunity to really think it out. And making hasty decisions that can affect the long term is not good. I would recommend that you put this back onto the next agenda. I'm not saying what you're asking for is unreasonable.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that you've caught us off guard and it's not a good thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brunel.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I tend to agree with Councillor Jackson. I really haven't had time to think about this or do any more research on it. I would be perfectly agreeable to have it as an agenda item on our next regular council meeting.
Thank you. The only concern with that is the next council meeting will be after the open house is already completed. So that's why this was a late item. And this item, I was also just received the notification of our interim chief administrative officer's departure date. So things have changed quite rapidly in the last few days. So that again is why the under the late items. So Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Through you to our interim CAO, just a question. Do you believe that there would be enough staff to run the open house at the end of June? Thank you.
Through the mayor. I've been advised that our planner has already will be bringing in 2 additional planners to help him. He spent $1,000 on the storyboard to get ready. I feel that that is enough time to actually hold that open house. But certainly after the fact, we could put it on hold after that. I am still here till the end of June, so I was perfectly willing to have that go forward and start the process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Given that comment from our interim CAO, I do believe we should go ahead with the open house. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Did you have any further on that? No, I just thought it was important that we that the new staff be on board with the OCP right from the onset. They know what's happening, so they're involved in the process. Excuse me. It's not just a matter of just setting up the open house. So I would think that our OCP here now has been delayed for a number of months already. I would think if it's delayed for a few more months, none the harm. Anyhow, any further discussion on that? Ready to call the question? So I'll read out the motion again. The staff be authorized to set up the open house. All in favor? Opposed? So the motion fails to open up the open house.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I thought we were voting on recalling the motion.
That was a recall, so your decision, and I believe you said it wrong. So, I mean, let's do that. Let's do that recall again. So listen to what the motion is. So the motion here that we're actually voting on is that staff be authorized to set up an open house. All those in favor,
On those specified dates, Mr. Mayor?
whatever dates was in the, was from the previous May 1st meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So again, I'll call the question. So all those in favor to set up the open house. Okay. So motion passes with the mayor opposed. So that was the end of the recall. So the next order of business then, please.
The next order of business is adoption of the council minutes.
I have a mover. Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Vidal.
Mayor,
Errors-
I'm sorry, just because of this recall process. So staff are no longer going to go forward with the Woods Park thing till future?
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the motion that is in the, are we amending the motion then in the minutes to say till a further date then, rather than come back in?
If that's your recommendation, yes.
Okay, so it would make it more clear for that.
Okay.
So, would you like me to just kind of think what this motion should read then?
Yes, that sounds good. So errors or omissions then. Is there any other errors, omissions? Go ahead to it.
Right, so the, for the May 1st minutes, resolution 2023-5-1111 is that the proposed Wood Park Playground be referred back to staff to look at available funding and research additional options for natural looking playground, and a report be brought back for council's consideration at a future date when staff are in place. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Okay. Anything further on that? No, any other errors or omissions? Seeing none, ready to call the question. All in favor of the minutes as amended? Counselor,
So putting it off to September Woods Park?
no, that was already resolved. So this is just the adoption of the minutes in front of
Okay.
you with that change in it. So all in favor again? Opposed? Nobody opposed, so it passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next item is business arising from the minutes, and I don't believe there's any left now.
Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, next order of business, please.
Consent agenda, there's nothing in the consent agenda. So the next item of business will be delegations / petitions, and the first person we have is Kim Halowski from Fortis BC regarding Fortis BC low carbon transition plan.
Good evening, Kim.
Good evening, Mayor Wood and Council. I'm Kim Halowski, Community Relations Manager with Fortis BC. And I would also like to acknowledge that I'm speaking here today on the traditional territory of the Chehalis peoples. Fortis BC is committed to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and our work is guided by our Statement of Indigenous Principles. I'm pleased to be here today to share with you Fortis BC's low carbon transition plan. We value partnering with communities and sharing ideas in order to meet climate action goals and to also understand each community's unique energy needs. Am I echoing a little bit off the speaker?
Not too bad.
Not too bad, okay. So just a little bit about Fortis BC. I'm sure that you're already aware that Fortis BC is a regulated utility company that provides natural gas across the province. However, what many people don't recognize is that FortisBC also provides electricity in the Okanagan as well as in the Kootenays. In fact, we own and operate 4 hydroelectric dams and own and distribute approximately 7,000 kilometers of transmission, electric transmission and distribution lines, in addition to the more than 50,000 kilometers of distribution and transmission gas pipelines. We serve 135 communities across BC and 58 Indigenous communities across 150 traditional territories. We also serve 857 natural gas customers right here in the village of Harrison Hot Springs. Next slide, please. As an integrated utility company delivering both gas and electricity, we see the importance of both energy systems working together to support our communities. This pie chart demonstrates what happened to our province's energy system to meet peak energy demand on one of the busiest and coldest days this past December. As you can see on the chart, a FortisBC system was over 21,000 megawatts, almost twice that of BC Hydro's. Assets such as our Tilbury facility are vital to helping us secure energy when we need it most. Recent studies conducted by UVic, SFU, and UBC have concluded that there is not enough electrical capacity to meet the needs of our province. The University of Victoria focused on Metro Vancouver and concluded that if Metro Vancouver's natural gas system was replaced entirely by electricity, we would need an equivalent of 6 additional Site C dams. The importance of a diversified approach and a resilient energy future is at the forefront of FortisBC's energy plans. We do have very ambitious goals to reduce our customers' carbon footprint and are committed to a low carbon energy future. Our plans are guided and in alignment with the provinces. FortisBC created 4 pillars to our clean growth pathway to 2050 to guide our reduction efforts. Our first pillar focuses on energy efficiency, and since 2010, FortisBC has invested over $300 million in energy efficiency programs and rebate programs. Our second pillar focuses on renewable and low carbon gases. I'll go into more details about that momentarily. Our third pillar focuses on zero and low carbon transportation, and the transportation sector accounts for over 40% of the province's GHG emissions. FortisBC deployed over 900 natural gas powered vehicles, and we're currently fueling 7 ferries with LNG. We've also installed 42 electric vehicle charging stations in the southern interior. The last pillar focuses on global LNG and really focuses on the marine and industry sector. LNG is produced at our Tilbury facility and can replace diesel and reduce 90% of particulate matter in the airshed. When used in industry in China, LNG can also reduce emissions by approximately 50%. So what is renewable gas and how is it made? Renewable gas is derived from biogas, which is produced from decomposing organic waste from landfills, agricultural waste, wastewater treatment facilities. It is then captured and cleaned to create renewable natural gas, also known as methane. It uses existing carbon already within the ecosystem and does not emit any net carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. FortisBC works with local farms, landfills, green energy companies, as well as municipalities to capture and purify this methane, which would otherwise end up in the atmosphere. We have renewable gas partners across the Lower Mainland, including Seabreeze Farms, Lulu Island Wastewater Treatment, Fraser Valley Biogas, Surrey Biofuel Facility, and most recently, Vancouver Landfill. Renewable natural gas blends seamlessly into the existing natural gas system, displacing equivalent volumes of natural gas and lowering greenhouse gas emissions. This makes it a drop-in energy that doesn't require customers to retrofit their current appliances, either at home or within their businesses. Another form of our renewable natural gas that we're exploring is hydrogen. FortisBC is currently partner with UBC Okanagan to determine the feasibility of hydrogen within our system. We're very excited about the future of hydrogen and look forward to future conversations. It's clear that virtually all energy systems emit carbon dioxide. The amount of CO2 varies depending on how long the source remains in the ground, absorbing carbon. Renewable natural gas emissions coming from human animal activities such as wastewater treatment plants, landfills, dairy farming are already counted in the environmental carbon cycle, making it by definition carbon neutral. As you can see from this table, renewable natural gas is 10 times cleaner than BC Hydro's electricity. When you look at 0.29 carbon dioxide emissions per kilogram of gigajoule versus 3.0. Affordable energy is important to every community. While renewable natural gas rates are higher than natural gas rates, they continue to be cheaper than electricity rates. This slide shows January 2023 rates. Thankfully, natural gas rates have declined a little bit since then. As you can see, traditional gas is still the most affordable energy source in the province. A single-family home using natural gas has an average bill of around $1,200 per year. That is based on a single-family home, approximately 2,200 square feet. The same size home using 100% electricity would have an annual bill of approximately $3,000 to $3,500. And that same home, if it were to be 100% renewable natural gas, has an annual bill of about $1,760 per year, making it the middle cost effective and also a lot greener than electricity. FortisBC has entered into a phase of rapid expansion of renewable gas supply. We have signed long-term service contracts with suppliers to secure 18 million gigajoules of renewable natural gas, and these numbers are expected to increase significantly. As a frame of reference, 18 million gigajoules is equivalent to the energy produced from Site C Dam or enough renewable natural gas to heat 320,000 homes. Transitioning to renewable natural gas leverages our existing gas line pipe infrastructure, as well as our energy storage capacity necessary to meet peak seasonal and daily demand. Looking towards the future, we recently concluded a renewable gas potential study with the province, which showed that there is enough renewable natural gas resources in BC that is double our 2050 requirements. So we're very optimistic about renewable natural gas and the role it can play in decarbonizing our system. We are currently on track to exceed 15% renewable gas in our system by 2030, and the target is 75% by 2050. FortisBC submitted a renewable natural gas application to the British Columbia Utilities Commission last year, which included 3 components. If approved, the tariff would ensure that every new residential gas connection would automatically receive 100% renewable natural gas. This tariff means it would be tied to the lifespan of the building, not to the owner of the building. This would result in significant emission reductions compared to conventional natural gas and would also meet more stringent building GHG reduction targets. This program would also help to ensure displacement of traditional natural gas molecules with renewable natural gas molecules. The second component, focusing on existing customers, if approved, would ensure that existing customers would start to receive a percentage of their gas as renewable without applying for any form of program. The percentage would increase over time as FortisBC increases our supply of renewable natural gas that surpasses what the new connections would be. For example, in 2024, if this tariff was approved, existing customers would start to receive a minimum of 1% renewable natural gas into their system. And as I mentioned, by 2030, the intent would be 15% flowing through the pipelines. The third component involves a voluntary program, and we've had a voluntary program in place for over 10 years. This is where customers have the option to select their mix of gas. They could choose 5, 10, 15% of renewable gas to flow through the system. And again, at this point, they're paying a slight premium for that service. But again, as numbers tend to increase, their choices could be affected and their costs could go down. Today's gas infrastructure is tomorrow's hydrogen system. FortisBC is an energy delivery company. Whatever we deliver through our pipelines needs to be the energy needs of our communities today and well into the future. Hydrogen emits no carbon dioxide when burned and emits primarily water vapor. It can be produced by electrolysis, or it can also be separated with methane. We envision developing hydrogen hubs throughout the province to connect a dedicated hydrogen supply for hard-to-abate sectors such as industry and transportation. With these plans, we can help build a blueprint to support the province's hydrogen strategy. Clearly, the energy landscape is changing at a rapid pace. We have over 50,000 kilometers of gas pipelines ready to use, and our plan is to decarbonize using multiple renewable and low carbon gases. We need to be nimble, we need to be innovative, we need to be open-minded in order to be successful. However, we also need to be cautious of restrictive policies that would in essence put all of our eggs in one basket and limit energy sources, limit our resiliency, and affordable energy solutions for our community. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Vidal?
Thank you, Mayor Witt. Thank you, Kim, for your presentation, and it's good to see you again. I'm really pleased to see that Fortis, although may be somewhat ambitious, plan to move ahead to more clean and renewable energy transaction. I agree with you that Canada's view and opinion on continuing to use only traditional natural gas as a prime energy source is changing. And I certainly commend Fortis for recognizing this shift and taking all the preliminary steps right now towards adaptation and some alternate delivery programs. I have an ask of you. I was pleased to see you at our recent conference here and wondering if you could leave me your card, as I would like to share the presentation with the executive members of the Lower Mainland LGA. I would certainly appreciate that. And just a shout out to Fortis once again for continuing to support our conferences. It means a lot. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Thank
Or
you.
Mayor Wood.
That's okay. Thank you. Good. I learned a few things here this evening here, and I didn't know that the actual cost comparison was so significant, and also that was an incredible amount. I think that's your money always seems to come first. Low carbon gas, I hear that, and really I don't know what that means, but now that I've heard what you have to say, it's very impressive that it's renewable natural gas at 0.29 versus natural gas at 49.87. So that's to be commended. So when is it available in the village of Harrison Hot Springs?
So right now it is the opt-in program, but if this tariff gets approved, then obviously any new residential buildings, it would be fed through the pipelines. And I should just clarify too, so renewable natural gas and the gas pipeline system in general works very specific, very similar to the electrical system. So the actual molecules are fed in at a different source. It's like a displacement calculation. So it is allocated to the new buildings. It doesn't mean it goes directly through their pipelines, but when you look at the entire system, it is fully equated. So molecules that are attributed to a new build are natural gas molecules that are not going out from another source.
So help me understand that. It's an interesting one. So the other part is actually, there's not another pipe that comes. It's actually part of the facility itself. So these would be large containers that would be filled up every so often.
I should clarify. So for example, when natural gas goes to your home, if you opted to get a percentage of your gas service as renewable natural gas, it would show up on your bill. We would be getting renewable natural gas molecules that would fed in closer to a source where renewable natural gas is actually produced. What you put on what you subscribe to, that percentage of renewable natural gas would be fed through what is closest to where the renewable natural gas is formed, and the actual other gas molecules be taken out. So it is more friendly. You're actually reducing your carbon footprint, but I just want to clarify that doesn't mean it's actually going through the pipes right in your new building, but it operates the same way as electricity and the gas service right now. It's an entire system where everything flows together.
Thank you very much, Kim. No further questions. Again, thank you very much for coming here tonight.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah. So next we have John Coles. Please come on up.
Good evening, your worship and councillors. Thank you for granting me the opportunity to stand before you. My name is John Coles. My wife Beverly and I have been residents of Agassiz for 44 years. I practiced forestry in this area beginning in 1979 and ended in 2010 when I retired from the Minister of Forests. For a period of time, I held the position of Provincial Emergency Program Coordinator for this area. I am here tonight to shed light on the proposed emergency evacuation route through Sasquatch Provincial Park and to gain your support in stopping this project from moving forward. I do not believe that it has been shown that this proposed route is needed. And if at some point it is shown to be needed, I believe there is a strong possibility that it may not be passable when required. I also believe that the proposed road construction and fire smart treatments are not acceptable in the park. The proposal has many aspects to it, but I only have 10 minutes. Tonight, I will touch upon a few points. Planning for emergencies is a process. One starts undertaking a hazard risk and vulnerability analysis in the community to identify hazards that have the likelihood to cause an emergency or disaster. It also assesses the consequences should the emergency or disaster occur. When I began looking at the proposal, there was no analysis completed to support the proposal. However, the district's official community plan says the two communities, Kent and Harrison, are working with provincial government representatives to fund and establish a bypass evacuation route for traffic during serious incidents such as wildfire or major traffic accident causing, causing long duration traffic blockages along Rockwell Drive or the north end of Hot Springs Road. They say the idea has been around for 20 years. Our local paper over the years has reported numerous incidences that have closed Rockwell Drive for hours and sometimes days due to down power poles, vehicle accidents, culvert washouts, rockfall, and on one occasion, a forest fire. The district's officials believe this newspaper reporting is a valid hazard risk and vulnerability analysis, and the consequences support the idea of building a road through a Class A provincial park. I, on the other hand, consider these events minor, irritating transportation disruptions that one has to put up with when living on such a road. Forging ahead, district officials found that there were some bureaucratic hoops to jump through if they wanted this route. As part of a package, BC Parks required that they have to submit preliminary assessment of alternatives that would avoid the use of the protected lands, the park, as well as reasons those alternatives are not considered feasible. The district contracted out the work, and the results were that the Harrison East Forest Service Road, FSR, to Boston Bar and the Slocum FSR to Lougheed Highway were both shown to be quite unfeasible, which left the Rockwell Drive to Lougheed Highway, the road through the park, as the only feasible option. In fact, the engineering consultant looked at two options for the Slocum FSR to Lougheed Highway alternative. The second option which is approximately 570 meters above the park boundary, was utilizing mostly deactivated roads with a bit of new road construction connecting the deactivated roads. However, because of very steep side slopes, terrain instability, and potential debris flows, this option was discarded. District officials did not consider the deposition sites of these potential debris flows when they looked at the last option. My second and third document that you have shows what happens when potential turns into active debris flows. During the November rains, the main road through Sasquatch Provincial Park was buried by debris flows, by a debris flow that initiated in this unstable terrain, making the park road impassable. A section of this road outside of the park to the east was obliterated by the debris flows, initiating in similar terrain. Debris flows have a history of reoccurring. And if you look carefully at the landform upslope of the Sasquatch Main Road, you will see this evidence. The district and the village jumped on or were pushed onto the bandwagon of having a community wildfire protection plan, which suited their purposes quite well. Both plans are very interesting documents with a lot of good fire smart information. However, I believe there is a major error which occurs in both analysis. The error is that they have the wind blowing in the wrong direction at the crucial time of a forest fire's life. That crucial time is when the forest fire is most likely to make a run, which is late in the afternoon. In this area, that would be about 2 o'clock to 4 p.m. on a hot summer day. Data from the Hague Camp weather station at Hope, not the local Agassiz weather station, was used. The authors of the analysis have the winds blowing in the southward direction, whereas we all know the winds at that time of day, excuse me, blow in a northerly direction. A forest fire in the Rockwell Drive area will head up the lake, not towards the village. This can be seen in any photos taken of actual fires in the area. This is a major point for decision-making and basically nullifies critical parts of the presented plan. I should also point out that the authors of the report cited Rockwell Drive as the primary evacuation route, evacuating to the south, which could be improved with the application of fire smart activities being undertaken along that route. There is another point that I feel may present an issue to the validity of the analysis. The authors include the big fires of 1933, 1934, 35, and 38, which burnt around Deer Lake, and the very large fire in 1958 of 3,052 hectares that burned on the lower slopes of Slaloka Mountain. These fires were fueled by massive seas of logging slash. Such fuel conditions will never occur again. And therefore, these noted fires should not have been included as they have biased the analysis. Both communities now have a flood risk analysis. This analysis shows two sections of the proposed route as being in the floodplain. A section on Rockwell Drive and a section down by the Lougheed Highway. I remember July 3, 2021, when traffic restrictions were placed on Rockwell Drive. And no trucks were allowed to drive on the road as the high fresh water was undermining the road. During high flood water levels, Rockwell Drive would not be passable, and the connecting point to the Lougheed Highway would be underwater, thus cutting off access to Hope. Sasquatch Provincial Park covers 1,217 hectares. That's quite a small park. If one calculates the total impacted if one calculates the total area impacted by road construction and roadside hazard reduction proposed within the park, it totals 345.4 hectares, which is 28% of the area of the park. That's not acceptable. We must remember that the main reason this park was established was to show the public the capacity of nature to recover from our industrial activities. 30 years have passed since the Mahood Creek Bridge was washed away in a storm. During that 37 years, nature has been slowly turning the road into a natural setting again. I highly recommend that you walk Deer Lake Trail and see the results. I also ask that you hop in your car and take a drive up the road, starting from the Lougheed Highway, and view for yourself the concerns I have raised. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or?
I just, before we any questions, John, I just wanted to say, I received a copy of your report probably a year ago that was passed from someone to someone to someone. Then I just received your report here the other day. Fantastic report. The amount of work you put into this, you've got to be commended. I can't say enough. I think as a community of Harrison, and I believe Kent also, I think all of us have to thank you for what you've done, what you've documented, your pictures here. There are a number of pages. You ask some good questions. You're not afraid to challenge questions. I think that's what we really need to see. And again, just before I ask if there's any other questions from Councillor, I just wanted to say, sincerely say thank you, sir. Any questions? Councillor Bidell.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Not a question, just thank you for the very in-depth report. You bring up some valid concerns. I'm going to take the time to read it thoroughly again. And have you provided our staff with any contact numbers for yourself, should any of our counselors wish to speak more in depth?
Yeah,
with you?
I have done that, and I will speak in depth.
Thank you.
Could you just repeat that last comment? I don't know if that was heard. John, was it? Did you give the number out? Were you able to get that?
I believe he did say that he had left the contact information with staff. No, that's correct. John, that's,
Okay, thank you for your comments. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't run away just yet. Councillor Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Worship. My first 9 years on council, we spent endless hours on an exit through Saskatchewan, etc. I really wish we'd had this report then. We could have put it to bed, done away with it, and come up with other plans. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's just not a reliable route. I personally think that what we should do in Harrison, we should have done a long time ago, is to get together all the boat owners in this community, get a committee, get them all lined up. So if we need an emergency exit like Dunkirk, we can get people out down the Harrison River safely. I thank you very much for this wonderful report.
Absolutely. Don't leave yet. I have one more question for you. So I can't find where I read it. But there was a notation in there that you had 4 evacuation routes suggested. And you said you could see it from I guess an aerial map. Could you help me out on what 4 areas that you were thinking that we should be leading towards?
Okay, I'm sort of out of that role of planning for different exits. It's up to you guys to do that.
Thank you. I just because of all the research you've done, I thought maybe you actually had something very specific in it here.
Well,
Again,
I will say though, that you actually have an exit to the north. You've got two exits to the south, and the District of Kent should join up with you guys to make another road in their farmland.
Great. Thank you, John. Thank you again. Any further questions? No, no, we're done. Thanks, Jim. Do I need to move a receipt to a chief administrative officer for this report?
Yes, your worship, that would be nice.
So I move receipt of this report, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Call the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
Next order of business is correspondence, and we have two items of correspondence on the agenda this evening. Did you wish me to read them out, or?
I don't think so. Just give me a chance just to catch up with you here. Absolutely. Actually, I do. The first letter would be a good one to read out. Which is
The
page
first
50,
order, sorry, did you ask me to do that?
please.
Okay, sorry, I'm having no trouble hearing.
Yep.
The first order of correspondence is a letter dated May 8th, 2023 to Premier Abbey. And it's a letter from Harrison Hot Springs that the mayor sent out to them, voicing council's opposition to the Bill 43. And the second email is an email dated May 9th, 2023 from the Emergency Planning Secretariat. It's an invitation to the Lower Fraser Floodplains Forum. It takes place on Friday, June 9th from 8:30 to 4:30 at Scokill Health and Community Center. And they're looking for somebody from council to attend.
Thank you. So motion for receipt. So moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor, I don't have to look, second by Councillor Fidel. Call the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order is business arising from correspondence.
Any business arising from the correspondence? Seeing none, next order of business, please.
Next order of business is reports of councilors, committees, committee of the whole, and commissions.
Councillor Jackson, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Worship. I would just like to give a big thanks to Councillor Liddell for her welcoming of all the delegates to the LMLGA conference that was held last week in Harrison. They had the largest attendance, I believe 250 people. It was very well organized and very well done, and I believe Councillor Liddell has already moved up in the organization to the, I think it's first vice president. Yeah, second vice. Okay. Thank you. And I must admit, I really enjoyed the conference, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood, and thank you, Councillor Jackson, for those kind words. I certainly did attend the Lower Mainland Local Government Association conference. The keynote speaker was Naheed Nenshi, who most of you will probably remember as the former mayor of the city of Calgary, who gave a very inspirational address on SERVA, service to the community, which is a cornerstone of his Muslim faith. Day 2 included sessions on local government partnerships and innovation, which highlighted the success of the Abbotsford Airport, the revitalization of downtown core of Chilliwack. Most of you probably know it now as District 1881. And the New Whistler 360 Health Cooperative. Another panel session focused on everyone's responsibility for codes of conduct and ethics. The panel discussed these issues amongst Elected officials and panelists included a lawyer from Young Anderson Law Firm, Michelle Dunn from the ministry, and a code of conduct investigator, and a District of Squamish counselor. Another session focused on lessons learned from the 2022 elections, and panelists included counselors from Burnaby, Vancouver, the mayor of Langley City, and the municipal affairs reporter from CBC. I'm very pleased to report that the two resolutions that were submitted by this council were endorsed by the membership and will be forwarded to UBCM for consideration during the conference in September. Day 3 was known as our political day, and included addresses from the leader of the opposition, Kevin Falcon, Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau, the Honorable Ann Kang, our Minister of Municipal Affairs, and Jen Ford, the UBCM president. We were also very fortunate to have the Honorable Bowen Ma deliver the closing keynote remarks, which focused on community resilience in a time of climate disruption. Lower Mainland LGA continues to be in sound financial shape, and I'm pleased to continue on the executive for another one-year term as second vice president. And I also wanted to give a special thank you to staff for being at the ready during the conference for whatever needs or asks I had of them. May 9th, I had the pleasure of delivering host community welcome to the Modular Housing Association Conference, which was held in Harrison. And on May 11th, on behalf of the Lower Mainland LGA, I presented a check to Agassiz Harrison Community Services in the amount of almost $3,500. Community Services was our designated charity for the conference. And we designate this charity in lieu of giving our speakers gifts for their presentations. So that's my report, Mayor Wood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is reports from the mayor.
Thank you. I just noticed that our fire chief and the fire chief of Kent were sitting here, and I appreciate their attendance. Unfortunately, they snuck out, so I wasn't able to say anything to them. Under the mayor's report here, I just like to acknowledge a local resident that did the walk with the District of Kent with the mayor. That was Teresa. She, from what I read there, has earned in the neighborhood of $2,279, and that's funds that she has forwarded over to the District of Kent for their pool. I would just like to add that again, that any resident that has the energy that Teresa has shown this council, I think it's great for the community. She has lots of different ideas that she plans to be looking at in the future. And again, she should be proud of what she got, that contribution for the District of Kent pool. Again, thank you to Teresa for that. Next item I just wanted to mention was that the transit strike. The transit strike, I mean, I haven't heard too much about it here in the village, but I'm sure it affects a number of people that are probably not as fortunate to be able to be as vocal as they would like to. I just heard tonight, and the strike actually sounds very difficult to understand. It's what I understand is our buses out here, and actually I shouldn't say too much more, but it's actually not by TransLink. It's actually their own independent union. Anyhow, it's a complicated process, and we need to get our transits, we need to get our buses up and running again. A letter was drafted by the administration and sent to the provincial government to urge the provincial government to appoint a mediator to get the buses back up and running. The next one was I spent some time with the province Ministry of Municipal Affairs, just again continuing on dealing with the mayor council. And I don't think I have much to add on to that one. The two other ones here. And I think it's I had a number of people with concerns with the freshet that we have now. Some people that don't know what the freshet is, that's the snow melting and coming down the Fraser River and raising the levels in our dike here. And again, the purpose of our dike. So these floodgates, and there's been some question about how they should operate. And I have some comments that I would like to make on that. I know that the floodgates are operating based on, or it's my understanding that they're operating based on the screw pump and the set points of the screw pump. Those set points were designed a number of years back. It wasn't that many years back, but it was designed for the lake itself rising. What was not really anticipated is what happens if the rain or the water is on this side of our dike, which something that we experienced, I believe it was last year, sometime, the atmospheric rainfalls. So, I mean, these rainfalls changed the whole operation of the floodgates and how our screw pump. The screw pump has been set quite high, so it keeps the Miami River at a high point right now. So if we were to, which was forecasted for possibly this afternoon here, if we were to have a heavy rainfall event, there's some areas that the Miami River here is just maybe a foot from overflowing the banks. So it concerns some people. And it also is concerning when you go down and you see these floodgates and you see them flap open and closed, and people wanting to know what's happened. People want to know that it's safe, it's working right. I've been assured that they are working right. I was down there this morning having a look at it myself, and they appear to be working very well. But the elevation of the Miami River is high. And again, can it absorb a high rainfall? No, it's going to cause some flooding. So maybe we really need to be looking at, how the Miami River, how our floodgates, and how the screw pumps actually work. And I would say, instead of looking at it, which is, I believe, how it has been looked at, it's been looked at as far as a operational side of things for the freshet. But I think we also have to start looking at it from another point, and that's atmospheric rainfalls and climate change. I think we also need to be looking at it from an environmental part. I know that there's some concerns on that maybe there's not enough oxygen content in the water. I'm no expert in the Miami River in the water, but maybe there's a flushing action by letting the Miami River come up and then pumping it down quickly. Maybe that'll help the environment, the natural environment of the river. I just think that we've got some really good questions that's come out of all of this. So I would really just encourage staff to just second rethink the operational side of the screw pump and the gates, floodgates, and have a look and think of it again on the other side of things. The last one I wanted to talk about was just the freshet update. I mean, everything I think on people's mind is either fires or freshet, not everybody. Bear with me a second here. I just want to read. We just got an update. So this is dated May 15th, which is today. So This is the ongoing, this is from our emergency program coordinator. So the ongoing Freshet to 2023 updates. So it says the current clever, I don't know exactly what that means, but it's some sort of a modeling thing. So the 10-day modeling for Harrison Lake indicates a peak of 11.6 meters. So this is expected to take place on May the 22nd. The forecast issue in Harrison Mills that initially showed a return of a 1 in 100-year level has been drastically reduced. The District of Kent is remaining at a level 1 EOC operation for monitoring of that area. Today, the province released a high stream flow advisory for the Fraser River. Current expected returns place the river levels into the 5+ category. So I think it's important with all this warm weather that we're having right now. I think there's a lot of concerns of what to expect. But so far the 10-day modeling here looks is looking good for us. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is reports from staff. Would you like me to read each one out?
Yes, could you please?
The first report is a report of the operations manager, acting DCAO. It's regarding Public Works Building vermiculite abatement.
Go ahead, Troy.
Thank you. Both public works buildings, the workshop and the lunchroom and mechanics bay attics contain vermiculite that require removal. Vermiculite, which is asbestos, or is an asbestos product, is a naturally occurring mineral composed of shiny flakes resembling mica that is a lightweight, fire-resistant, and odorless material that was used as insulation in the attics of the public works buildings. If undisturbed, vermiculite poses a very low health risk. However, to eliminate any risk of exposure, it is recommended to be removed by a qualified asbestos abatement contractor. In 2018, section PS 3280, Asset Retirement Obligations, which is known as ARO, was issued by the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board. ARO is defined as a legal obligation associated with the retirement of a tangible long-lived asset in which the timing or method of settlement may be conditional on a future event, the occurrence of which may not be within the control of the entity burdened by the obligation. Implementation of this new standard is a requirement of the PSAB and it is not optional. Investigation and evaluation work of all village assets in 21 and 22 identified vermiculite in the Public Works building as an ARO and, if disturbed, a potential health risk. So it was included in this year's financial plan as a project valued at $30,000. However, staff underestimated the value of work. The new estimate for the vermiculite abatement is approximately $45,000. Staff contacted 5 separate asbestos abatement contractors to invite a quote. Only 2 responded. PCS Pre-Construction Services responded with the most competitive bid. The recommendation in front of council this evening is that council authorize the addition of $15,000 to the initial budget of $30,000 for the Public Works Building vermiculite abatement project at a total value of $45,000 to be funded from Public Works reserves, and that council award the Public Works Building vermiculite abatement project to PCS Pre-Construction Services at a value of up to $45,000.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? I just have a couple of questions here. So in your report here, so have we gone through all of our civic facilities as far as the asbestos to our, yes, we have. So do we actually have an asbestos identification management program, or have we actually just confirmed or removed what we do have?
Because of the ARO responsibility or requirement upon the village, that is what triggered this, the assessment. So we have all of our facilities have been assessed, and this is the remaining one that has the asbestos that requires removal.
So I guess my question, so the asbestos then has been removed from all of our other facilities, so we've gone to a full abatement process?
I believe so.
So this would be the last facility that we would have some asbestos abatement that would be required then?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
Report of the operations manager, acting DCAO, regarding the off-leash dog park.
Back to you again.
Thank you. Before I present this report, I just want to identify that there was some correspondence that is noted. It was brought to attention by one of our residents. It was not included in the report. However, council has it at their desk, and it's correspondence between myself and the ALC. Consideration of a off-leash dog park. At the January 27th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting, council passed the motion that staff seek further public engagement and canvass adjacent properties for both proposed off-leash dog park locations. At the request of council, staff issued a public notice to residents and adjacent the proposed dog park locations, requesting feedback. And there's a map in your agenda that shows the properties that were included. Of all the responses that are in the table, there were 36 total responses, 12 responses in favor, and 23 responses against. McCombs Drive is a 1 acre lot in the ALR with plenty of trees for shade and rain shelter and not adjacent to any homes. There is no parking on the east side of McCombs. However, the location is directly connected to the McCombs Drive walking trail, which is currently used by dog walkers. On-street parking is available on Chestnut Avenue, and additional parking spaces can be added to the community garden parking area to increase off-street parking. Some debris and underbrush would need to be removed, as well as minimal clearing around the perimeter to install fencing. But all effort would be made to leave the site as natural as possible. There are some trees that may pose a danger and will need to be assessed and potentially removed. Correspondence with ministry staff discussing the potential dog park within the ALR has been included in this report. The vacant lots on Hot Springs Road or the overflow parking. Lots 1 and 19 are vacant at Hot Springs Road and Miami River Drive, and were purchased with the funding from the Parkland Acquisition Reserve and reserved for park purposes. The remainder of the vacant lots are currently zoned P1 for community use, which includes parks. However, these lots are commonly used for overflow parking during events where there is no alternative plan for this time, or which there is no alternative plan for this time. Staff has received estimates to dedicate approximately 0.5 acres to an off-leash dog park. So what I've done is broken it down into a permanent option and a potential temporary option. So the permanent options, the village has collected park development cost charges and that may be used for the upgrades of the new park. And in the table, it breaks down the McCombs Drive project would come to a sum of $105,500. And the half acre at the overflow parking would come to approximately $47,500. Temporary option would be to put up temporary fencing for the duration of a period of time to see usership and such. And the going with the temporary option at McCombs Drive would come to the sum of about $34,000 plus $660 a month for rental of temporary fencing. And the Hot Springs Road location would be $12,700 plus $440 a month. Recommendation that council authorize staff to install a temporary park in the overflow parking lot in September 2023 for a term of 6 months. That council authorize staff to fund eligible expenses of up to $10,000 from the Parkland reserves for the temporary dog park. that council authorize staff to add $5,000 to the operational budget for the temporary dog park. That staff report back to council in the spring of 2024 with the review of the trial period to include operational, communal, and financial information.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Counselor Bidell, seconded by Counselor Jackson. Discussion? Counselor Bidell.
Thank you, Mayor Wood, and thank you to staff for the report. We're going to go with a temporary 6-month trial period. I would not be in favor either the McCombs or the overflow parking with establishing any benches or concrete pads at this time. And while I still hold the opinion that a permanent off-leash dog park should be located on the McCombs site. And I've stated my reasoning for that numerous times, one being that it is farthest away from, I believe, residents and would have the least impact on residents. However, I will support the 8-month trial basis in the overflow parking lot. And specifically the overflow parking lot because of the minimal cost. I do thank staff for the recommendation, and I do look very forward to a detailed report next spring on the usage, the operational cost, and I will be looking for both resident and visitor feedback. We've waited a considerable time to see an off-leash dog park become a reality, and I'm really pleased to see that we're taking steps towards that. Thank you, Mayor Wood.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Jackson.
Thank you, Worship. We've tried this and tried it and tried it. It didn't work. One of the problems was that when you have a bunch of dogs together having fun, there's a lot of waste left behind. Who picks it up? Well, when we were on council before, it was staff or other people who lived in the area that had to go to do it. In all conscience, I can't vote for this when we've not approving or looking at a little playground for children in the park, which I think is much more important. If you want to go ahead with it, that's fine, but I'm not in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you make this easy here for me, so I have no further discussion, so we're ready to call a question. So all in favor, and this is for the temporary dog park. I'm not going to read it all off here. Again, all in favor of the temporary dog park? Counselor Vidal, opposed? Opposed by Counselor Jackson and myself. Motion fails. Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. The next order of business is from me, and it's regarding the strategic planning session on June 26th and 27th, 2023. The issue is to hold a strategic planning session with council to determine goals, initiatives, and actions to move the community forward. The background is that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs has provided the Village of Harrison Hot Springs with a municipal advisor, Mr. Ron Poole. Mr. Poole is a neutral third party with local government experience whose role is to support, mentor, and provide a liaison between council and senior staff with a focus on building professional relationships and effective council practices. The role of the municipal advisor also includes assisting council and senior staff with the assessment and implementation of strategic priorities. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs has authorized Mr. Poole to assist council through the strategic planning process. The strategic plan is important to a community as it is a roadmap that defines and guides a community into the future. It defines the municipality's key priorities, processes, and short and long-term plans. It guides work priorities through departmental plans and prioritizes budget and resource allocations through multiple years. It is important that strategic planning include a process for receiving public input from the community to highlight the priorities of the community. Prior to council participating in the strategic planning process, staff is recommending the following. One is to prepare a community survey for residents to input the top 3 strategic priorities for the community. For example, these could be community well-being, affordable housing, economic diversification, or the environment. And there's plenty more. Further to this, there will be a second question asking residents, where do you see the village in 10 years? The online survey would go live on Thursday, May 18th on the village website and collect public input until Friday, June 16th. The input would then be compiled into a list that would identify the community's priorities in order of importance and their responses to any questions. The results of the survey would be presented at a town hall meeting on Monday, June 26, 2023, starting at 5 p.m. And the public would be given an additional opportunity to offer further comments after the results were presented. Once council has heard from the community, the town hall portion of the meeting would be adjourned and council would proceed into open meeting, which would shift or could shift into a closed meeting when the items being discussed fall under section 90 of the community charter. It is common practice that council strategic planning sessions take place in a closed meeting, as discussions can often involve many topics, some of which would be confidential, such as issues dealing with land, legal, or labor. Mr. Poole would also request feedback for the strategic planning session from council. This will be done by direct email to each council member, and the email will be sent out tomorrow morning with feedback to be received by Friday, May 26th. The recommendation staff is making is that a town hall meeting be arranged for 5 p.m. Monday, June 26, 2023 at Memorial Hall so residents can attend, and that council strategic planning sessions start after the June 26 town hall meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a mover on the recommendation, moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, sure, Your Worship. I'm certainly in favor of strategic planning, that's for sure. We need it really, really badly. However, personally, I'd rather see the town hall meeting start at 10 a.m. in the morning and go till noon. Recess for lunch, and then the council get together after that. I don't see the logic of starting at 5 p.m. And going on because you don't make great decisions if you're tired or your mind is wandering around. You got to get started early in the morning when we have everything about us. And that's the only thing that I would recommend we change. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vidal. Fine. So are you asking Councillor Jackson for an amendment?
Yes, please.
So that was moved by Councillor Vidal. So you would like to change that? Before actually we go into that, just a staff question. Did Councillor Jackson get that right? That was the intent to go into the the council meeting at the end of that day at 5 p.m. or was it going to be after that day? I'm just not quite sure how that's worded there. To our Chief Administrative Officer, please.
So staff had recommended having the town hall meeting be arranged for 5 p.m. so that the public could be there for the presentation of the results of the survey that had been gone out. But certainly council has can change that time to 10 a.m. if council wishes to do that and have that public presentation at that time.
So just so that I'm still not too clear on how that looks. So the town hall meeting is, are you talking about a meeting, a town hall meeting with council? To our chief administrative officer?
Yes, Mayor Wood. The thought was that if we had a town hall meeting where the information that was received from the public had been collected and that a presentation be done for council so that it is presented in such a way that council knew what the results of the survey were. And the members of the public were made aware of what they had provided to the village. And then it would also give anybody attending the chance to have an opportunity to make further comments on what they have seen. It's more of a relaxed atmosphere kind of meeting where it's a little bit more discussion back and forth. That and was felt that having it a little later in the day would give people the opportunity to attend. But I understand what Councillor Jackson is saying. Having it earlier on in the day, council would be a lot fresher.
Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor. Would through you to our interim CAO. Do we only have the availability of Mr. Poole for those 2 days? And the reason I'm asking is, would there be a possibility to do the town hall meeting 5 p.m. on June 6th, but not go into strategic planning until the following day? Normally, or it's been my experience, strategic planning usually, can take a full day up to 2 days. I'm wondering if it would be possible, or if you could let me know what commitment Mr. Poole has made other than those 2 specific dates. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Poole has said that he is available June 26th and 27th. I believe he might be coming in on the Sunday prior to this. So perhaps we could have a town hall meeting on the Sunday rather than, and then have him here for the 2 days. I don't know if he's available for the 28th. I didn't ask him that, but I can certainly ask him that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's kind of a little bit of a way around it. I don't think we really have an idea how long the town hall meeting would last, and to go right into strategic planning, as Councillor Jackson indicated, after which could or couldn't be a lengthy town hall meeting. I would certainly appreciate it if could get a little bit more information from Mr. Poole as maybe what his recommendation would be. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So an amendment. So your amendment, do you withdraw your amendment, Councillor Jackson?
Perhaps,
You get a mic.
perhaps what we really should do is to, because we've had some healthy discussion, refer this back to staff so they can work out other ways of coming and satisfying everybody. That's what I would recommend.
So you withdraw your,
Withdraw, yes.
okay, and you're recommending then to refer to staff, and that was moved by Councillor Vidal. You're good with that amendment, friendly amendment? Okay, so ready for the question on that one then? Call the question, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously to refer to staff. Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Report of the Operations Manager, Acting DCAO, regarding Code of Conduct.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Before I read this report, I just want to bring to council's attention that there's a few clerical items that were caught when the draft went into the final version. So when council is going to be considering the draft, it's going to be as amended. And then also when the final version, it will be as amended as well. So on page 77, under section 4.1.1, there's it almost looks like a blue where it says or deputy CO. That should actually, there's three of them in that paragraph. They should all read deputy CAO. And the second one is found on page 84. There, in the very first sentence, at the end, or kind of the middle of the sentence, it says, and section 2, the Roman numeral 2, that should be removed.
Whereabouts are we on that one? Page 84?
Yes, page 84, top of the page. First sentence says the publication of letters completed in subsection 1 and 2. So and 2 should be removed. And sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then the final one is on page 88, which is second to last page under 5.1. Appointment of investigator. So it's 5.1.1. The CAO, I want to change shall to may.
Shall to may.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that is correct. Okay. So the issue in front of council today is to provide readings to the Code of Conduct bylaw number 1189/2023 as amended. At the April 3rd, 2023 regular council meeting, council passed the following resolution that the draft Code of Conduct bylaw 1189/2022 be reviewed by legal counsel and provide any changes or amendments that may be necessary. Village Legal Counsel, Lidstone and Company reviewed the draft Code of Conduct and provided recommendations, which has been included in this report. A final copy with all the recommendations accepted is included in this evening's agenda for council's consideration under bylaws. Recommendation is that council review the attached draft Code of Conduct bylaw 1189/2023 as amended with proposed changes, and if it is supported, give the bylaw its first 3 readings, and that the current Village of Harrison Hot Springs Code of Conduct policy number 1.33 be canceled once the Code of Conduct bylaw 1189/2023 is adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a mover on that? Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? Yes, Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor. Would through you to our open operations manager and acting deputy CAO. Thank you. I certainly looking at the revisions that were suggested by Lidstone Company, I must say I'm happy that the recommendation was made to have Lidstone review it, because reading through his recommendations, it certainly made sense to me. So thanks again, and I will be supporting the recommendation. Thank you, Mayor Wood.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, any discussion on that?
Thank you, Rush. I support it.
Okay, thank you. I just-
Although I was
sorry.
wondering whether or not this should have been referred back to staff, because we do have 2 counselors that'll be at the next meeting. And it might be more appropriate that all of us deal with it at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Vidal, again, you moved the motion. You're good with a friendly amendment to refer to staff? Bring back at the next meeting?
I believe that is that your friendly amendment, Councillor Jackson, to bring it back at next regular council meeting. Is that correct? Yes, I will support that, Mayor Wood.
Okay, thank you. So further discussion on that? Seeing none, ready to call the question? All in favor? Passes unanimously, so it's referred back to staff for the next meeting. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is under bylaws, and it's the Highway and Traffic Amendment Bylaw number 1191. And the recommendation is that Highway and Traffic Amendment Bylaw 1191, 2023 be given final reading and adoption.
Thank you. Bear with me one second here. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Counselor Bidell, seconded by Counselor Jackson. Discussion? No discussion, ready to call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item, please.
The next is the Park Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1192, 2023. And the resolution is, the recommendation is that Parks Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1192, 2023 be given final reading and adoption.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Jackson, seconded by Counselor Bidell. Discussion? Not ready to call the question. All in favor? Nobody opposed. Motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
The next is a report of the planning consultant regarding rezoning amendment bylaw.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before we get started, there's some changes to the report. Some new information has come in. I'd like to draw your attention to page number 97. Halfway down under the parking and streetscape improvements, there's discussion on the community amenity contributions of 20,000, 10 for the public benches, 10,000 for the public art contributions. There's been some subsequent discussions and it's now changed to $30,000 and there is no condition, although the developers still ask that we focus it on those things, but we have a little more flexibility with the $30,000 if we end up at that amount. And on point number 3,
Just before you carry, you lost me on where we were, sorry.
point number 4 and 5,
Page
halfway
90
down,
Page 97, correct?
page 97, yes.
Oh, okay, so number 4 and 5, yes.
Yes, you can see that community amenity contributions was totaling $20,000. There's been subsequent discussions with the developer since this report went out, and that has changed to $30,000 and it would be unconditional. But the developer is still asked that we try to put it into those other categories as they see fit, or as the village sees fit.
Thank you.
And the other point is the very bottom of the page, point number 3. In the application process that was submitted, there was reference that the top floor amenity area will be open to both the public and the users of the building. I received an email today from the applicant's agent saying that that was a mistake and it's for the users of the building only. So that is no longer an additional amenity. Is it okay to
Thank you.
proceed, Your Worship?
Yes, please, go ahead.
This is consideration of first and second readings of zoning amendment bylaw 1193, 2023. Review of a suggested amendment of zoning referral list and authorizing staff to set up a public hearing. The bylaw deals with changing the floor area ratio or the FAR from 1.5 to 1.78. Change the lot coverage from 75% to 76.9% and change the building height from 15 meters allowable to 22.8 meters. The FAR, or floor area ratio, is a measurement of a building's or structure's floor area in relation to the size of the lot that the building or structure will be located on. Generally, the FAR is expressed in a decimal format and is an effective way to calculate the bulk or mass of the proposed development of a particular development site. Generally, it's used for commercial and industrial purposes, but the FAR can be used to lessen environmental impacts of the development or to control the mass and scale of the development as outlined in the diagram below on page 96. You can see there that we've got different FARs where we got 1 story, 100% coverage. It covers the whole lot. 25 or the next one over is 2 stories at 50% with only a 50% lot coverage. And the 4 stories are, which ends up with a 25% lot coverage. So you can see how the floor area ratio operates. The floor area considers, or the floor area ratio considers the footprint of the building and the entire occupied areas of the proposed development. Unoccupied areas such as, but not limited to, parking garages, elevator shafts, and basements are generally not included in the calculation of the FAR. Lot coverage is a planning tool that's used to control the scale of development on a lot, and the overall building footprint is controlled through the use of this tool. For the building height, this type of planning tool controls the overall height of the building or structure. Architectural elements that do not add floor area to the building or structure, such as the wall, parapet, walls, chimneys, vents, and roof equipment, are not considered part of the height of a building or a structure. With respect to this application, there's various public realm improvements that are being offered by the developer. And this is broken into the 3 categories of parking and streetscape improvements, dwelling units, and additional amenities that are being offered. The parking and streetscape improvements include public bench and bike racks, new picnic areas, or new public sidewalks, new curbs, and new storm drainage. New public trees will be installed and maintained, and then there's the 30,000 of the community amenity contributions. With respect to the dwelling units, the disabled or affordable dwelling units, 10% of the resident units will be adaptable units, and the developers proposing 80 total units. That would be 8 either under disabled or for affordable. And please, we do not, the way it's being proposed, we will not be looking at having a housing society administer these 8 units, nor are we going to be looking at utilizing a housing agreement concept. The additional amenities that are being offered is development of a public plaza at the corner of Littlewood Avenue and Spruce Street, new landscaping on 3 sides of the public washroom located in Rendell Park with a 2-year warranty program. The accessibility impact statement. In terms of accessibility, the project must meet the BC Building Code requirements for universal accessibility as per the Building Access Handbook outlined in 2014. Under the agency referrals, there's 3 agencies that we're recommending that it be referred to, and please note, Council has the ability to add or delete to this list as they see fit. The staff recommendations at this particular point in time is that the bylaw go to the Advisory Planning Commission, the Village's Fire Department, and the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. And if Council so wishes, you may want to consider the Fraser Valley Regional District or any other agency that Council deems appropriate. The title review, the title of the site has been reviewed and there's no flood covenant registered on this title. Somewhere through this process, that there'll be a recommendation that we put that covenant on place. And as per a previous council meeting, council requested that a public notification meeting take place. The developer had that meeting on February the 10th, 2023. Now, if this resolution goes through tonight, what we do now is we take all of the information taken from the public notification meeting, we take all the information from the public hearing, we take all the information from the referral agencies, we make a report for council, and then council gives it consideration as to whether or not they want to adopt the bylaw or move forward with the bylaw. First and second reading tonight just means you're not approving anything. You're just moving it forward to receive those comments so you can make your informed decision at some point later on. The recommendation, your worship, is that the zoning amendment bylaw 1193/2023 be given first and second reading, and that staff be authorized to refer the application to the Advisory Planning Commission, Harrison Hot Springs Fire Department, and the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and that staff be authorized to schedule a public hearing.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Counselor Vidal, seconded by Counselor Jackson. Discussion? Counselor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor. Wood, through you to our planning consultant. Just a couple of questions with the agency referrals. Going to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, what sort of feedback will they provide to us? Will they be looking at doing like traffic flow counts or impediment to Lillooet Avenue, or is that something that we could expect to get back?
Yes, they will be looking at it, and also part of the Local Government Act, any commercial activity within 800 meters of a controlled highway has to be referred to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Thank you. And I also do support your suggestion. I would like to see it go to Fraser Valley Regional District for further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Jackson. I guess my question is when this came to council the first time to go, and where council gave the authorization to go to a public open house, I haven't seen any of the drawings myself, so I don't even know what this looks like, or other than a few drawings that were included. So before I would proceed to anything further, I would like to see some of the drawings. I would like to see the other report. I believe that this is a follow-up from the previous council, before, which means they would have seen all of the like the tree reports. I thought there was something about a shading report. So do those reports pertain to this development as proposed today? To our planner, please.
Yes, Your Worship, I would say they were, because they're just a little over, or just almost a year old, those reports. So the information that is contained within them are still applicable, but that type of information I would suggest would come for your third and final adoption, so that you have that information at your fingertips, so you can see all of that as part of your informed decision near the end of the process. What I'd also like to suggest at this particular point in time is that you've already requested that the planning consultant look at all of the land use bylaws that you've got in place and update them. One of the things that we should be looking at as well is, under the development and procedure bylaw, is allow the developer to come in at this stage and do a 20-minute presentation instead of prior to the public hearing stage. So you can get it at the front end and the back end. Whereas now we just get it at the back end and there's also a presentation that's provided to the Advisory Planning Commission.
Absolutely. That would be a good
So
option.
that is on the work list, Your Worship.
Thank you. So just my last question here then. So we've got here the village's fire department then, and again, the Ministry of Transportation. Have they not already looked at these from the previous?
Yes,
Proposal?
they have. And I'm suspecting that they will get the same response back, but we don't know at this particular point in time. And we just want to err on the side of caution.
Okay, because it's already gone to the Advisory Planning Commission and the fire department and the Ministry of Transportation. So those reports would come back to this council at third reading or fourth reading?
Yes, Your Worship, they would. And we're also recommending that they go back to these other agencies again, because they substantially changed their what was originally being proposed. So we need to see how these agencies feel about these new requirements.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to call the question. All in favor Motion passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
Mayor, Wood, the next order of business will be removed from the agenda as the report that was presented earlier was referred to the next meeting. So this would also be referred to the next meeting.
Thank you. Next order of business, then, please.
The next order is new business.
No new business. Next order of business, then, please.
Questions from the public pertaining to agenda items only.
A member from the public, please.
Good evening, John Allen, 398 Hot Springs Road. On the bylaws, did we just skip the amendments to the parking fees? Because today is the 15th of May and the pay parking starts today. And I would presume that you would have wanted to adopt this bylaw in order that the fees being charged had some legal basis. Did I misunderstand what just happened? Did we?
Can
I
get-
didn't hear bylaw number 1191 getting adopted tonight. And this is the last day you can do it. Otherwise, all the meters outside are wrong, presuming they're programmed for this new regime. Sorry,
Mr. Mayor, the highway and traffic amendment bylaw was moved by Vidal. Councilor Jackson seconded, and it was carried
Oh.
for final reading and adoption.
I must have got it confused with something else. The audio, Mr. Mayor, is quite dodgy at the back of the hall, and it's hard to hear sometimes. And on that point, at the start of the meeting, you announced the unfortunate departure at the end of June of Mrs. Ridley, but there was somebody else before that you mentioned. And even though I was sitting here in the front, I couldn't hear who it was. Could you please clarify the first announcement that you made this evening under
the-
late items? Who was that?
That was the community services manager. The deputy, she had three titles.
Sorry, the community services manager?
Community services manager. She was
Oh.
a separate corporate officer.
Ah,
And she was also the chief financial officer.
Miss Shell,
Yes,
is that her?
yes, it is.
Okay, thank you, just for clarification.
Yep.
When it comes to Mr. Mayor, the dog park, I have a question about that because I spent some time and gave you a fairly detailed proposal for a temporary trial dog park in the south end of the overflow parking area. I submitted that letter to the village office, directed to the mayor and council in lots of time for tonight's agenda. It wasn't on the agenda as I expected it should be, and it wasn't referenced in any of the staff reports. And I wondered what had happened to my letter when a person spends the time to do the research, do the measuring and write the letter, you kind of expect that it would be dealt with. And I wonder why my letter seems to have been excluded from the discussion.
I can tell you that I didn't receive it, but I'll ask the question to our chief administrative officer.
Sorry, yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor or Mayor Wood, I don't know what happened to your letter. If I had forwarded on to go on the agenda, I'm sorry if it didn't make it on the agenda, but certainly would have forwarded to staff to put it on the agenda. And I apologize if it didn't make it. We
Okay,
can
Mr. Mayor.
certainly put it on the next one. I'll look for it.
Well, let me just make a verbal application like to appear as a delegation at the next council meeting to make sure that my letter is received by council. Thank you. And on that point, I'd just like to again reiterate that the audio is still very challenging here. I couldn't hear anything sitting in the front row. I had to move back and sit beside the speaker, and I would urge you to at least add another speaker or do something about the audio because we can't hear what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Alan Garno from 641 Schooner. And I second the last request.
Mhm.
And it doesn't help. You got state of the art. In fact, my hearing aids talk to my phone and my phone just told me my hearing aid batteries are getting low. So a lot of good that's going to do. I'm a stickler for process, as you know. And I do have some questions with respect to the new bylaw regarding the code of conduct and how it was developed. I would ask if you intend to answer any of my questions, you make a note, and then I can get back to that place where I can at least hear what you're saying when you answer them. It was a policy. This is an understanding. This was a policy up until now, and now it's going to be a bylaw. And that might explain why I couldn't find it a few months ago when I was looking for it. That's possible. And I think it's likely. So I'm glad it's out in the open. Or as a policy, was it open to the public before? I don't think it was. There were, just to go through that document, along with everything else on this agenda, was a very daunting process. It's lengthy. I went through it as much as I could, and before the meeting tonight, I had only got about 2/3 of the way through. And I looked ahead and I thought, there's massive amendments coming up in the application or in the of this process. So my question has to do about process is, who suggested the amendments in the first place? Was it just staff? Was it staff and council members or just council members? I know that you said it was referred to a lawyer for consultation. Did the lawyer come up with all the changes? Or did he just simply comment, if necessary, on the ones that were already proposed? Was there anybody outside of council besides legal counsel that was asked to suggest amendments? I'm quite concerned, I must tell you, about some of the implications of some of the changes I see. And I'll try to get those to you in writing before the next meeting, but there are some very significant changes, especially with respect to the concerns we have with the operation of council at the moment. Changes in names of titles and so on. I won't go into detail, but that's why I'm saying, who made these changes? How much of it was just from the lawyer, if any, or did he just comment? And I guess my final question is, how many of our council members who are going to be voting on this can actually say, yes, I read this right through? I told you it's a daunting document. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'll wait till you get back to your seat and then I'll ask. Go ahead then. Go.
So the process was that council wanted a code of conduct. So I had asked around, and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs had suggested that the code of conduct put together by the Squamish was a good one to use. That was the one that formed the basis of our beginning document. After it was presented to council, the resolution of council was to forward it to legal counsel for them to review it and make comments. The only people that have had the opportunity to comment on it since it came before council was the lawyer. In order to be clear about what changes were made, staff chose to present the document to council showing the original version and all the changes that were suggested. And have the bylaw come forward as a bylaw at the end with all the changes being accepted. So the only people, so the main bylaw was used, was fashioned after the District of Squamish's bylaw. It came to council, they looked at it, they asked us to forward it to the lawyer. We forwarded it to the lawyer. He made those changes in that document, and it was presented in its form to council so that they did not have to go back and forth between the old document, the new document, to figure out which changes were being proposed.
Thank you. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Teresa Almos Garneau, 641 Schooner Place. Just a comment in regards to the evacuation plan. I found it very interesting that Mr. Coles presented his presentation this evening. I learned a lot. And I'm wondering if council has ever considered the use of a hovercraft in an emergency evacuation situation. In a brief Google search, you can find one for 10 to 12 people for a used price of $500,000. Might be something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Just a thought, you're passing, when you do pass the new code of conduct bylaw, what happens to the provision in the procedural bylaw? There's a code of conduct in the procedural bylaw. So is that a duplication, or does one override the other? Or does one make the other invalid? So I'll leave you with that thought, because code of conduct didn't pass tonight. Okay, so maybe staff could look at it. I mean, maybe council could ask staff to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I want to lose my hearing aid. I'd like to make two comments. The first one is about the dog park, since it was brought up. I live on Chestnut Street. I don't want a dog park at the end of my road. There's not enough parking. The people that live on Chestnut park their motorhomes, umpteen trucks. It's a thoroughfare for any car because we don't have speed bumps. A couple of kids almost got hit. Do we need more traffic? Do we need everything blocked up on both sides for a dog park in there? Absolutely not. We never got the survey. We knew nothing about it till a neighbor told us about it. So I don't think a proper survey was done. And I would appreciate if they're going to pass it, that one could be done where all the residents get an input on it. That's my comment for that.
Thank you.
My next comment is in the paper I read for the OCP, that it's at the village office. I guess nobody really understands that it's not safe and it's not good for our health. I would like to go. It's a cramped space. We've all been complaining about it at least the 2-3 meetings. I'd like to know who put it there, because there's no parking for disabled people or mobility issues, hearing impaired, and for health. I always wear a mask. I know a lot of people don't, but why were these not considered in having it here instead of the village? I'd just like an answer on that.
Just let me ask staff. Would staff like to answer that?
I'm going to defer to the planner.
Yes, just hold on, Ken. Just let her get to her seat. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
The purpose of the open house, as we made in the presentation, your worship, was to deal with providing information and answering questions. It's not a sit-down presentation. There's not going to be a series of surveys that are going to be done. There's 13 storyboards that people can walk in and look at. And if they've got any questions as to why we're doing X, Y, or Z, this is what the planners will be on staff to answer any of those questions. The idea is to, and if you have any additional information, there'll be sheets that will be available for you to write down your additional comments. There'll be sticky notes. So if you want to put something on the map, all of that will be there. It's basically just to walk in, have a look at everything. If you've got any questions, they'll be answered for you on the spot. And if not, the planner we'll take down the information and get you that information. So it's not a sit-down session like we had before with the World Cafe, which was held in here. This is just quickly going to be reviewing 13 storyboards, 4 boards that are dealing with the maps. Ask your questions, comment on whatever it is that you want, and done.
So there's 3 planners there, so then we're anticipating larger groups, so does it make sense to move it over to this place?
We're not expecting a large group because it's spread over 3 days and 3 different time periods. If we were going to have a presentation onto what an OCP is, if we were going to follow the World Cafe concept, where it's a sit-down session or where we got to talk and go into dialogue and everything else like that, that would be a little bit different. If we were going to talk about the goals and the vision statement and the goals, that would be a completely different process. But right now, with the information that's coming back, it's just misinformation that's going on, and people are asking additional questions onto what does this policy mean, or what does this policy mean, and this is what they're going to be answering. And the idea is if there's the 3 planners that are around, it may be just 2 planners that are needed at a certain point in time, with the 3rd, myself, being there to answer any of the additional questions that these 2 planners cannot answer.
Can we make arrangements to relocate it to the hall here? To staff?
If that's council wishes, we can. The first advertisement that went out did have it at the village hall, but if it's council wish to move it into this location, we certainly could do that.
Thank you. This council,
Take a motion to adjourn, your worship.
Councillor Vidal.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear, Councillor.
Motion to adjourn.
You want to make a motion to move it here?
No, he's talking about adjournment. He's not answering it. So the question right now to council is would you like to relocate it to the community hall here?
Is that a motion that's been put forward?
Yeah. It's a
Mayor?
motion.
Okay.
Yes.
No, the advertisement has already gone out and the notices have already gone out, so I wouldn't support that at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the question then, all in favor? No, so you're in favor of using the community hall? I just want to make sure you heard that.
Your worship,
We're not discussing adjournment. We're discussing whether the OCP meeting is the open house is done in the community hall here or in the old village office. So the motion is again to change it from the old village office to here. So are you in favor of changing the OCP to here? Okay, so Councillor Vidal was opposed, Councillor Jackson and the mayor is in support. So we're going to move the OCP meeting to the community hall here then. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Just a comment on the already arranged meeting at the village. I mean, I would see that working out, but I think a follow-up more elaborate meeting as they've done in the past would be another great opportunity. Let this process move forward, but let's get something on a larger scale here where we can have a larger presentation with information input from the public and other people invested. I think we can take it to that next level. Is that possible?
Just the planner's got his hands up first. To our planner, please.
That was the intent. If anything new that comes up through the open house process and the information would go back to council, and there may be the possibility that we have to do another World Cafe. That was the intent of everything at that particular point in time. Because right now, the community surveys that have gone out have proven that or shown that there is substantial support for the current vision statement and substantial support for the 10 goals inside of the current official community plan. So the intent was at this open house was just to talk about the policies, look at the maps, add information as required, and then we would take the reports, bring it back to the council table and say, there's no new information. There's new information. This is what it is. And this is what you should do or could do, and leave it at that. And if required, then we could set up additional world cafes or other things like that as well.
Councillor Vidal, did that answer?
Thank you, Mayor Wood, but I do think Mr. Cossey has explained it way better than I could. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one brief question, if I might, and I'm very alarmed by your report that the province is reporting we're going to get peak water at 11.6 meters on May 22nd, because when we had the last flood event on November 15th, 2021, we had major flooding in the village, which in my opinion proved that the screw pump was incapable of getting rid of the water behind the dike on our side of the dike. And if we're going to go to 11.6 on May 22nd, and if the village continues to not take control of the dike, not close the gates and not run the pumps, my neighbors are going to be flooded. I'll be just about okay, but there will be people with water in their living rooms at 11.6. And if you look at Miami River tonight, it's already near the top of the bank along Cedar Avenue. So I would urge you to review the advice you've got from CTQ or whoever is setting the pump levels and seriously consider moving those levels down, pumping about 1 meter of water out of the Miami and giving us a little bit of a cushion and some freeboard to withstand whatever might come down the pike. One thing we've learned with global warming, whatever's going on, is that the weather is unpredictable. We got 20 inches of rain in one day in November of 2021. If that happens, we're completely hooked. So I would urge you as mayor and chief executive officer in charge of public safety to take an active interest in that. Thank you.
Thank you. To the operations manager, did you want to comment on that at all? Or-
Comment on bringing the water down to a meter?
Yes, please.
That would not be recommended because there'd be an environmental impact to the existing ecosystem. The idea was to, the idea behind the system is to recharge the water course to an elevation of 8.5 between 10.85 and 10.95 meters. The lake can go as high as it wants. And if we go too low, then what we'll do is we'll cavitate the screw pumps, which could cause significant damage. So that's why the elevation was set where it is.
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you. Do we have any questions on Zoom?
Anyone on Zoom, if you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll mute you. There are no questions, your worship.
Thank you. Let's do. Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Counselor Jackson. Seconded by Counselor Bidell.
I believe if the gentleman wants to make one more comment, I think we should permit that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think we already started the process before we got up here.
Fine, then I'll second the motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Call the question, all in favor. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for coming, everyone. Good night.